Let me take you back to the past. Back to the year 2018. To the time I first picked up and played Hollow Knight. It had been about a year and a bit, and I heard it was pretty good. I like Metroidvanias, and I like Dark Souls. It was June when I first started playing, so probably picked it up on the old reliable Steam summer sale, booted it up, and had at it. I remember the game being pretty tough, both the bosses and the exploration. I very vividly remember getting stuck in one area for a really long time and not liking it. Probably pulled out a guide and eventually beat the game, but I didn't finish all the DLC. I wasn't really a fan. I didn't see why people were so hyped for the game or why it was so loved. I mean, if you're a Kickstarter backer, you definitely backed something better than Mighty Number 9. When Silksong was revealed, I was on the sideline laughing at all the hopefuls every gaming event. Nintendo Directs, E3, Summer Game Fest, Game Awards, you name it. I was looking for the clown. I became a bit of a Hollow Knight detractor, and there are probably a few streams on my old channel where I talk about it. I would not and could not recommend this game to anyone. And that was just the way things were for years. Eat, sleep, work the daily grind, laugh at Silksong, and wait for the Bloodborne remake, like a true gentleman. Now let's fast forward. After years of waiting, Silksong is about to release. And I knew I wanted to talk about Hollow Knight, but I didn't want to go off just my memory of playing it. I wanted to feel what I felt back in 2018. So I started to replay Hollow Knight to completion just days before Silksong's release. You can even see my old save file here from yesteryear. Just like I said before, I played a lot, but never fully completed it. The only bits of the game I really remember are the first boss, Hornet, Mantis Village, that one flower quest, getting trapped in a very specific area, and that's like kind of it. So how did it go? How did my revisit to Hollow Knight pan out? Right out of the gate, I forgot how good the game looks. The HD sprite work and 2D animation look super clean. I didn't even remember the game had cutscenes. It feels like we don't get a lot of games with hand-drawn sprites. It's mostly pixel art for these style of games. That's not true, but it feels like since Cuphead's come out, we've seen HD sprites become more common. Before that, it was like Skullgirls, Spelunky, Vanillaware games. Maybe it's a coding or engine thing, and pixel art is just easier to work with. Because I can't imagine the workload being any different between animating pixel art or animating traditionally 2D. But what about the game? How are the opening hours of Hollow Knight? The opening areas are pretty straightforward. Explore, find a dead end, keep exploring, find the right direction, fight a boss or get a new ability or a new item that lets you pass the previous dead end. And it's like that for like the first half of the game. Maybe not half the game, more like half the explorable map. After that, you start to feel more lost. And I wish the map was more traditional to Metroidvanias. You know, reveal the blocks as you explore, not being tied to buying area maps and having it all fill in. But I think I know why they did it this way, and I'll talk about that later. Getting lost and exploring is a part of the genre, and thanks to my memory, I didn't get too lost. I'm not really having any trouble with these bosses either. I guess there's still some muscle memory there too. Mantis Lords, I remember being a pretty tough fight, but I beat them this time like it was nothing. Opened up and walked right into the area I got trapped in last time. Deep Nest. From playing before, I knew this was the wrong way. Why the game lets you enter here way before you're able to do anything doesn't make sense at all. I think maybe the Mantis Lords were a deterrent, but if you power through it, you would never know. And they only have like 3.5 moves, so it's not hard to figure them out. The way forward being a trap boggles me. At this point in the game, the map has really opened up to exploration, and the real way to progress is not obvious. Even having played this before, I did end up getting lost again. I am noting that the map isn't very helpful at all, and finding the next path forward just from the game's direction is failing me. I'm questioning the game's direction. Why is the map like this? Where do I go? Why am I so directionless? You use your new abilities on what looks like the way forward, only to find a shiny pebble and a dead end. Why is the game like this? Are they trying to make this game like the original Metroid on NES? When I said that to myself, that's when it hit me. Yes, they are. That was the whole point. The game wants you to be lost. Getting trapped in Deep Nest for who knows how long on my first playthrough permanently scarred my perception of this game. I probably looked up a guide and just followed that from that point forward. I wasn't really able to experience Hollow Knight and what it was going for. Now that I have a playthrough under my belt and the ability to end a playthrough whenever I want, it allowed me to enter a comfort zone. I went into this with pretty low appreciation for the game, but I knew I should at least replay it. At least for a little bit, to try to see if I could find why people love this game and not just come out with the same impression as last time. I think I'm starting to see it. Let's go back to the map system real quick. Its helpfulness is limited on purpose. Rooms just fill in all at once you've rested at a bench. There's no way to just fill it in piece by piece in real time. Very rarely do you get a hint or secret or one of those openings visible on the map, unless it's a connecting point leading to a major area. It brings me back to the original Metroid, which did not have an in-game map at all. If you wanted that, you had to buy Nintendo Power. Just like in Hollow Knight, you have to buy the area maps. The compass also comes at a cost of your equipment load, so if you want to know where you are or where you're going, you gotta get the power. But it doesn't cost you any real money in Hollow Knight. At this point, I am just lost. But I'm starting to just enjoy the aimless wandering. Hollow Knight has this kind of creepy, cozy vibe going on. Every area has its own unique theme, mood, characters, and bugs. All this time wandering around just allows you to become immersed in the world here, in a weird way. But that feeling of danger just being around the corner never goes away, and you better be ready for it when it shows up. I don't know if it's because of the past playthrough, but I am not really having trouble with these bosses. It's been 5 years and I don't really remember much. And even if I did, it's not like I have every boss's frame data on tap. Maybe it's the hundreds of hours of Elden Ring keeping me sharp. But to get back on point, Hollow Knight wants you to get lost, more so than any other Metroidvania. In most other games in the genre, you'll see a ledge you can't reach, color-coordinated doors you can't open, walls you can't break, the list goes on. Hollow Knight does do this, but there's no telling if you're going the correct way. It might be a dead end with only a collectible at most, or money at worst. It might be a secret, or it might just be a bigger bug you're not ready for. Maybe you stumble into a new area not knowing if it's the correct way forward, and you end up finding exactly what you were looking for, or something you didn't even know you needed yet. So many times, I went into an area thinking, I'm not supposed to be here yet. Obviously, I've beaten the game before, but even this time, things just felt off. I just gave into the game and just wandered. Maybe because I didn't have any fear of running into a boss I couldn't handle, but I really started to get a feel for the experience the game was providing. I'm getting closer to the end of the game, and at this point, Silksong is already out. But I'm just enjoying my time with the original. Something I feel like I was robbed of in my first playthrough. 20 hours later, I took it to the final boss, beat the game, and saw something I did not expect to see. I got the achievement for beating the game. I thought I already had this. You're telling me I had 108% on my original save and never beat the game? If this doesn't make it clear that I just followed a guide, I don't know what does. The original intention for this video was to express all of the negatives I personally had with Hollow Knight. I really did not think the game was that great, but being the person I am, I wanted to get a better understanding of things before making my point. And if anyone thinks, oh, he's just jumping on the Silksong bandwagon, he knew he'd get mobbed if he made a hit piece on Hollow Knight. I want to show you something. This is the first achievement on the day I started playing. June 21st, 2018. And here's the one after beating the Mantis Lords. July 10th, 2018. A bit of time in between. I might have been busy, but I can't imagine too busy. But clearly the game did not have me gripped to the point of having to play as much as possible, as quickly as possible. And here's the next achievement I got. February 12th, 2019. I brought it up a few times, but you might remember me talking about falling into Deep Nest and getting stuck. It was so bad, I dropped the game for half a year. This is something I didn't even remember. I thought it was just one lengthy playthrough. I do not remember dropping the game at all. All I remember is not really being a huge fan. And I don't know what happened in early February that made me pick it up again. Maybe there were whispers of Silksong in the air. But have I found my own appreciation for the game after playing through it a second time? Yes, I've become a fan. But I still think Hollow Knight has some monolithically bad decisions. How easy it is to fall into Deep Nest and get stuck. A lot of rooms are one way in, one way out platforming messes that get pretty repetitive. Dead ends that are just there to misdirect and pretty much waste time. Going into this thinking you're playing a typical Metroidvania is not really what you're going to come out with in a sense. It's really hitting home with the Metroid 1 themes, allowing you to just get really lost and aimless. You really need to get into that mindset of getting lost in the world. Kind of like booting up Spider-Man 2 on GameCube and just swinging around for fun. Does that make any sense? I think there's a pretty good chance that you can miss out on what the game wants to do very easily on your first playthrough. Unless you use a guide maybe, but even then you still might miss out. To cap off Hollow Knight, after beating it for a second time, I went back and completed my original file. I didn't do all the optional difficult challenges, I just wanted the completion percent. And it only took the release of Silksong to get there. I might have not been waiting for the release of Silksong, but this save file sure was. Strangely poetic. Hollow Knight was only a year and a half old when I first started that file, and I didn't see the end until now. That just leaves us with Silksong. Did I play Silksong? Yes, I did. I've gotten the true ending and wrapped up the 100% completion, and what did I think? Hollow Knight's biggest hater turned true believer. What did I think? I loved it. So let's talk about it. I won't show anything past the first few hours, just like I did for Hollow Knight. I don't want to spoil either of these games for anyone. So I'm going to try and keep it broad and vague, but if you still want to go into Silksong blind, now is probably a good time to stop the video or skip to the end or whatever. I'll put up a warning on screen when I start talking about later parts though. Where to start? Where to start? I guess let's talk about what stayed the same, what's new, and what's improved. The map system's the same, so if you didn't like having a compass equipped for 90% of the time, that has not changed. I have more to say about this game's map, but I'll talk about that later. Hornet has a lot more weight to her animations compared to Ghost Knight, Pale Knight, Little Guy, whatever the first protagonist's name and or title is. They're both still snappy and responsive, but I don't know. There's something about Hornet that just feels better. Maybe it's because they gave her a bit of a Belmont strut. I could just rock side to side forever. Mobility feels a lot better in Silksong. It starts off slow like in the original, but when you get some of the more momentum-based abilities later, you can start zooming. Hornet is quick and nimble when she needs to be. She can float through the air and climb up trees? Climb up walls. No more DuckTales Pogo. Now it's more of a red-hot kick move. You still bounce, but the angle it travels on makes it trickier to use and abuse. While on the subject of things being a little more tricky, something I immediately noticed is that
the controls are mutilated.
I'm mostly talking about the focus/bind button, because in Hollow Knight, the focus button was a do everything button. Want to heal, you hold. Want to shoot, you press. Want to do the blast, you hold up and press. Want the slam, down and press. Silksong only has the heal on the same button, and all your offensive options are moved to R1. Maybe it was the 20 plus hours of the original I just played that caused this, but I also had conflicting muscle memory with the sub-weapons. Silksong adds sub-weapon tools like throwing knives, bombs, rope, lamp oil, the usual. And my brain is thinking, oh, Castlevania. Pressing up an attack out of sheer instinct. I was healing when I wanted to attack, I was spending meter when I wanted to heal, and I was swinging upwards at nothing, trying to throw a knife at a boss on the other side of the arena. I did try to rebind the controls to try and mimic the original better, but I was still screwing it up, so I just went back to default. It took me like 10 hours to get used to the controls. I think it's also a fair point to bring up that this game is brutal. I did not have this tough of time with the original Hollow Knight. Given I didn't do the most difficult stuff available, but I started Silksong within a couple hours of defeating some of Hollow Knight's toughest bosses, and I'm getting beat by the dang fruit flies in the opening area. Apparently, I'm also playing a slightly nerfed version. A patch came out a couple of days before I started playing that lowered some of the damage from enemies and bosses. I'll take any bone they can throw me. Hollow Knight 1 gave off that sense that there was always a bigger bug just around the corner. The normal enemies didn't cause too many problems. Most of the time, the environment was more dangerous than the normal enemies. Spikes, bombs, jellyfish bombs, dive bombs, acid, etc. Silksong, it's kill or be killed. When they're bringing in enemies and bosses that take 2 health right out of the gate, you know you're in trouble. 2 health hits was endgame for Hollow Knight. And I maybe could have had an easier time with some of the bosses if I used more sub-weapons, but they are a limited resource and I felt like it was a bit of a crutch, like using resin in Dark Souls. It would make the fight easier, but it's limited, and when you're out, you either spend time farming for more or knuckle up and do it the old-fashioned way. And I would rather do it the old-fashioned way first before throwing in some spice. To talk about the map a little bit more, if you weren't a fan of the level design in the original, I'm very happy to share that the level design in Silksong is improved across the board. There's no more one way in, one way out platforming nightmare rooms. There's a couple every now and again, but for the most part, you'll find bigger and more open areas that loop around way better, allowing you more breathing room when exploring. Which is good, because just like in Hollow Knight, you are going to be running around these locations for a while. And I never felt that sense of, this is annoying now, like I did in the original. A new, or at least improved to the point of being new feature, is the quest system. There were kind of quests in the first one, but definitely not a system like this. On an initial playthrough, I liked the addition. It might look like just simple fetch quests. Go to an area you've already been before, kill enemies you've already killed before. You might think they're here just to pad out the game, and it kind of does. But I'm pretty sure the main purpose of these was to get you back into a location, to give you another shot at finding some of the less noticeable secrets or areas you might have missed on your initial playthrough. Some of the quest text will just flat out tell you there's something here, so please explore. And you might find a new secret area, or by following the quest, a new way ahead will be made available. I don't know how well the system will feel on multiple playthroughs, but I think you could get by just by doing the ones that provide power-ups, equipment, and open new areas. And I think that does it for what's new and improved. I left out some stuff just to not spill all the beans. But while still fresh off talking about the quests and exploring, just like combat and bosses being more challenging this time around, the exploration also has been amped up to be just as punishing. And this is maybe the only gripe against Silksong I have. I'm willing to take some personal responsibility here. When I played through Hollow Knight again, I did not use the map markers to keep track of areas to return to when appropriate. I learned that lesson the hard way. So I'm very much active on placing markers in Silksong for high jumps, walls, doors, platforms that clearly needed to be returned to at a later time. And I found a lot on my own. I probably did about 75, 80-ish% completion before really getting stuck. My complaint comes from how easy it is to miss pivotal areas that are required to see the whole game. I'm going to throw up an alert for spoilers now. I'm not saying anything specific, but I'll put up a warning since it's more of the end game. I'll take it down when I'm done talking about it. In Hollow Knight 1, if you don't get all the secrets to reach the true ending, all you miss out on is a boss battle. But all the requirements to reach this point are pretty easy to find. As long as you keep your objectives in order, you can probably figure it out. In Silksong, it is so easy to miss something required to reach the true ending, and it's not like you're missing out on just a boss and a cutscene. You're missing out on like a third of the game. It turns the getting lost aspect of Hollow Knight, which I just started to appreciate and recognize as a positive, into truly aimless wandering. Not knowing there's a breakable wall in a dimly lit room, an opening being blocked by the foreground, not seeing an NPC in an area that's only a couple screens big, seeing a room that clearly has more to it, but not knowing whether it's connected to a new ability, an NPC in the overworld, or a quest board mission. It really feels like the devs wanted this to be more of a communal discovery and discussion. Kind of like how when Dark Souls came out, everyone was talking about all the hidden passages and all the hidden items, trying to figure out where everything is and what everything does. Did you find this item? Did you find this secret? Did you know this? Did you know that? You know? That kind of talk. Again, I'll take responsibility on missing stuff on my own. The game does provide you with opportunities to revisit areas with important secrets, and I'm okay with going through an area 2, 3, 4 times, and a second playthrough might have provided an even better chance of catching everything, but a 6, 7, 8 time through an area still wouldn't fully prevent something from being missed. Sometimes the game will mark on your map where to go and what to do next. Other times it leaves it up to you to recall where to go. I'm pretty sure the main quests are the only ones that get this treatment. I tried my best to get to the true ending without using a guide, but 30 plus hours in and no clue what I was missing, having gone through most areas a number of times, I was not about to comb every room pixel by pixel. If the devs had put something in like the Secret Slugs jingle pouch that would alert you in-game when you're near a secret, this still wouldn't fully remove what is locked behind abilities or quests, but at least it would be something that keeps me in the game and not looking up a guide. I can almost grasp the idea the developers had, but it just did not stick the landing for me. I think that's enough yapping from me. Starting the video with the intentions to detract from Hollow Knight turned into an appreciation for the games, and then a mock review. I was not expecting that to happen. If I was going with my initial thoughts of Hollow Knight, not replaying it, I would consider it a 5 or 6 out of 10 game. It's okay, but I didn't see the hype. Marathoning it again with Silksong included now, I think I would bump it up to an 8. And Silksong is just a flat out improvement across the board, so I think a 9 is a perfect score, with the dock point being from the unforgiving exploration. To break down these games pretty bluntly, Hollow Knight 1 is like a combination of Metroid 1 and Dark Souls. Silksong is like Symphony of the Night and Bloodborne. And when I say Silksong has peaked, is it Team Cherry's Super Metroid? I think it's gonna be pretty tough to top this. And there's probably DLC on the way too. I would love to see them do the same thing with Hollow Knight and sprinkle the new content into the existing areas, branching off into new zones and rewards. Does that taint the vanilla experience? Yes. Maybe provide an option to run a DLC-less playthrough if this is the case in the future. But that's kind of all I have to say. Oh, the soundtracks are really good too. I don't think they have like a big standout track you gotta listen to, but it's definitely a soundtrack you can just turn on and listen to the whole thing in the background. I could see them pulling a Metroid Prime and go 3D, but I can't imagine a Hollow Knight game without the beautiful 2D art. You would need to do top tier cel shaded work like Wind Waker or Guilty Gear Strive good. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they do next. And I'll be wearing my clown nose and wig with all y'all this time, instead of the one laughing. Welcome back. Welcome back to the end of the video. I really gotta stop making videos that require like 50 plus hours. Grip it and rip it on something quick. I'm already planning on doing another video on other indie games, so maybe that's not gonna be the case for a while, but you know, if you like this one, maybe consider sticking around. But if you watched all the way, thank you. Thank you for making it here. Leave a comment. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I made a lot of points. I made a lot of nitpicks, a lot of change of heart. Maybe you had a similar experience. And subscribe. Leave a hype if you're on mobile, if that's even still a thing. And I don't know, Silksong, you know, it's kind of got me inspired. I've been looking into maybe doing a bit of game development after so many years of thinking about it, like actually now really for real doing it. So I don't know, maybe I'll do a video on that. Spend 50 hours developing a game in MS Paint,